their daggone stupid kids and loud music and they're belching.
Or I just realized how much your voice sounds like Let's Play.
I don't know if it was played.
What? Are you fucking kidding me, dude?
What?
You are listening to the Music on Your Own Terms podcast. Business. Interviews. Encouragement. Constant improvement. Analysis. Digital distribution. Musicians. Recommendation. Promotion. Entrepreneurship. Live show. Music. Touring. Streaming. Hustling. Overcoming self-overcoming. Band. Anxiety. Accomplishment. Dealing with depression. Welcome to episode 11 of the podcast. This time around, I'm starting a new series where we follow my own band, Creatures and Chemicals, as we experiment with different marketing, promotional, and networking ideas to see what works and what doesn't. This episode is really just an introductory episode where we sit down and kind of shoot the shit for a little while and get to know each other. Hopefully the conversation doesn't go too far into the weeds, but I think it will give the series a good context and to find out who we are and where we're coming from, our likes and dislikes, and just general opinion. Head on over to facebook.com/music on your own terms, leave a comment, give us some opinions on the episode, and maybe even share some ideas and strategies that you've tried, what worked, what didn't work, why it didn't work. Let's get the conversation rolling and start to share ideas. I hope you enjoy me shooting the shit with my bandmates, Creatures and Chemicals, as we hang out at a random parking lot in Arlington, Texas.
You know what this reminds me of?
What's up?
Like back in the day when you just go out and just hang somewhere with your friends. Like, no particular
shit to do.
rhyme or reason to be hanging out in a parking lot.
Exactly.
Kind of dig it. Takes back to the roots.
All right, so we're hanging out after a good practice session. I'm with my own band, Creatures and Chemicals. Why don't you guys introduce yourselves?
So I'm Adam Ross. I play guitar and help with the lyrics.
I'm Brett Barrett, I'm drummer, help with the rhythm.
Cool.
With the rhythm.
So we're gonna start shooting the shit about state of the music industry. So what are your thoughts? Live scene or?
I think something I've kind of noticed over the last few days, just like booking shows and stuff like that, or trying to like get people to give us offers, is really how like into the mindset of like exposure is your payment is kind of becoming prevalent, right? Like Killer's Taco Show, like I like the fact that we don't have to sell tickets, but at the same time, like payout is a free round of drinks for the people that most like
right
bring the most people in. So it's a fine line to cross because I feel like you do kind of have to pay your dues at some point, but at the same time, like I feel like, you know, if you take it seriously in any kind of way, you should want to, you know, get something for it. You know what I mean? Like, you know, notoriety and just playing for fun, I mean, is one thing, but at the same time, I don't know, it's kind of like, you know, to me, I've kind of embraced kind of making it more of like a side business. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
I mean, I definitely think that having the mindset that a band, you have to run it as a business, otherwise you're really not going to get anywhere. You know, I think I see all too often that bands treat it as a hobby, and then what ends up happening is your results are, you know, they're hobby results basically, and what happens is you just don't it just doesn't get anywhere, and then people start complaining that they're not getting anywhere, but they're not putting the business.
I agree with that 100%, because what happens is, you know, if you guys are just meeting up to play on the weekends, there's nothing wrong with that. I think that's perfectly fine, but you know, if you're aiming to do any kind of shows, I mean, you have to like step into a little bit of the business side, because you're going to be selling tickets. You don't necessarily have to sell merch if that's what you're into, but you know, if it's a hobby, guys won't care about, you know, canceling shows or I can't play tonight, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it becomes, you know, at some point, and I think with a lot of bands, you have more people that, more often than not, one or two people in the band take it really seriously, and then other people kind of don't. And I've experienced that myself. And what ends up happening is the people that treat it like a hobby and it's no big deal to like cancel and stuff like that, you know, your other members' reputations are, you know, kind of,
I think that ends up,
You know?
they go downhill. But I
And-
think that ends up with a lot of resentment. 'Cause
Yeah.
That brings up a really good point about things like band agreements. People need to, a really good idea is to write up an agreement of what your aims, your goals, and what the, you know, operating procedures are for the band,
right.
and really just everyone agree to it, so that when an opportunity or an issue arises, everyone kind of knows what they've already agreed to, and no one can say, hey, you know,
Yeah,
I
exactly.
I'm not gonna go.
You
I'm
have
not
to-
gonna go by that. So.
You have to commit a little bit. I mean,
Yeah.
you know, it's the same thing. I mean, you know, think about like playing like kickball with people from work. You know, they're depending on you to play. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Well, it's not like a big deal. It's only for work. If you go into it with that kind of mindset, you know, they're not going to like you. They're not going to want to hang out with you. You know what I mean? You're not
Right.
dependable. So even if you are going into it with just the idea that, you know, it's going to be fun and, you know, you're going to jam out and go play some shows, that's fine, but you have to take it seriously. Or, you know,
Yeah, at the end of the day,
you're just going to be stuck.
I mean, at the same time, don't beat yourself up too much about music. Like, when I started playing, I always had to be, like, my mindset of the best, which there's really no such thing
Nope.
Right.
in the business. I mean, like we said, at the end of the day, it's a business, but you gotta have fun. Otherwise, it's just
Absolutely.
you just can't.
And
Like,
I think
you can't be a perfectionist. Basically,
Yeah,
is what I'm trying
I
to say.
think that mindset actually stopped me from playing in bands for a really long time. Like I had this feedback loop where I was, I'm not good enough, so I practice more, and then I just like, I can't really go out and play because I don't know this song properly, and I'm
Did me
gonna
too.
screw it up. But then at some point it was like, fuck it, I'm just gonna go out
Just
and
gotta
join
go.
a band.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I think that's like, to me, that's kind of like my thing with everything. Like, if I decide I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it. It did take me a really long time, longer than I probably would have liked, to have kind of started a band or gotten to bands, because, you know, it was only like, I would say, I started doing band stuff seriously, like maybe like 5 years ago, something like that. And I went back to playing bass just kind of like out of necessity, like, you know, and what's ironic, like bass players are typically failed guitar players. And oh my god, my phone's ringing. Sorry.
Oh,
We can cut this out, right? It's just my wife. I love you. But
that's staying in.
But for me, it was the reverse. Like I actually feel like I'm better at guitar. So, you know, having that experience of going to play bass, though, I actually think made me a better guitar player just in
Oh,
general.
absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I
But-
definitely don't think bass players are failed guitar players. It's a different instrument altogether. And the reason why I wanted to do this band that way is just because it gets me out of my comfort zone. And I always had an issue doing backing vocals and playing guitar.
Yeah.
So now I'm playing bass and quote unquote singing, and it's tough because you've got to pay attention to do different things, and unless I'm playing straight quarter notes or 16th notes or whatever, it really taxes your concentration trying to get the rhythm of the playing and the rhythm of the singing to, you know, a lot of times they're two different things.
Yeah. I can't do it at all.
Right.
Like, I can't sing and play very well at all. And it's actually, the funny thing is, it's actually just a lack of, like, confidence. I could do it, but I've never really, like, focused on it. You know what I mean?
Right.
Because I'm too afraid.
So,
But,
so what other challenges have you guys experienced over the years that have maybe set you back, or something that you've maybe overcome?
biggest challenge is people.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, finding people to connect with that you actually want to play with. And I feel like I had that, you know, a little bit with like the first instance of Creatures and Chemicals, but I definitely feel better about the three of us in this situation. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I was a little worried not having like, you know, an extra guitar and stuff and just being a 3-piece, but I like everything I've heard is solid. And I mean, that's really the biggest challenge, just finding people to
No, I've experienced the same kind
commit.
Yeah,
No, and
you also
whether-
have to have good chemistry with the people you're with.
Sure,
Like,
absolutely.
you know, you got to be friends.
Yeah, you guys are the
No matter
first band
what.
like I've ever like actually hung out with.
That's cool.
Yeah,
Like-
like you got to hang out after shows. And
Yeah, like we went and saw Real Big Fish. You know what
Yeah,
I mean?
we did.
It's like,
Yep.
we like actually do shit together, so that's kind of
Yeah.
cool. It's more of, to me, it's more kind of built more out of like that friendship aspect. Like you and I had talked for, you know, for forever just online until you got here.
That was
You
the
know.
point. I reached out to
You know.
for the sole reason, like, you know, I wanted to hang around with someone and, you know, go to shows and whatnot, and just so happens that we started playing music together.
Yep.
but-
So it was a natural kind of like fit, which I think is really good.
Yeah.
But everything else, man, I think it's all subjective. I mean, you know, things are as hard on you as you want them to be. I mean, I think the key thing is to get dudes that are committed on some level one way. Either you're, you know, uber committed, or you, like you said, you know, you do a band agreement, and you know, it's just going to be a hobby, and this is how we're going to handle shows. And you know, if we all agree on a show, we have to commit and we
Yeah.
play it, you know, because that's my biggest, I think that would kind of be my biggest pet peeve is canceled shows. Like,
Oh yeah.
unless it's like, I mean, you know, stuff happens. I mean,
Yeah.
you know, there's always going to be shit, and, you know, that's a little bit different. But I don't know. It's kind of been my experience that, you know, just the shows just get canceled,
Right.
you know, just kind of
Yeah,
left
I
out
mean,
there.
and again, it all goes back to the band agreement and the level of commitment and how everyone is, you know, and I think expectation kills a lot of situations just because there's no prior agreement.
Yeah.
Like if you sit down and you say, we expect everyone to, you know, be give 100% or do
Yep.
this or do that. But if that's agreement doesn't get set up in the first place, then I don't think anyone really has a right to be upset because you never agreed on it to begin
Yeah,
with.
you didn't establish like the boundaries and where
Yeah.
you guys are going, you
Exactly.
know. And it's something funny too that I noticed the other day. Somebody posted something on Facebook looking for members, and I think it's interesting. Like, to me, there's three kinds of like musicians, right? You have hobby musicians, you have like, you know, fair weather musicians who are like really good, can play really well, but don't put time into it. And then you have like just straight up musicians until you die. And I think it's funny, like, because I saw this post where this guy was like, yeah, I'm looking for band members, you know, and they always quantify it with, I'm married, I have kids,
Right.
I have a good job. And what they're setting you up for is they're actually setting you up to, like, they're kind of relaying some of their commitment level right there.
Yeah,
You know what I
exactly.
mean? That means that they're not going to have time to go in 100%. My thing is, and then they always quantify it with like, you know, oh, I'm not trying to make a career of this.
That
you know,
mindset
that's like,
right there is I think that's a big mistake because you're setting yourself up to fail
already. Like,
You know, you-
and the thing about it is, I mean, I just don't think that way. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I don't think it can't happen. You know what I mean? I'm just gonna fucking write songs, play some clubs, try to sell some merchandise,
Yeah.
and see what happens. You know,
Yeah,
whatever happens. You know?
educate
Biggest risk
yourself.
is not taking one at all.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. I mean, you just you educate yourself on, social media or this, that, and the other, and then you basically try stuff. That's
Yeah.
what I mean. That's kind of the whole point of recording this podcast and subsequent episodes is the fact that we're all looking to experiment with the business side as well as playing live.
Yeah, I love it.
And I think whatever sticks, we throw it at the wall and we try it. And if it doesn't work, then we move on to the next thing and we say,
Yeah.
"Oh, that didn't work," and then we find out why it didn't work.
Yeah, well, I mean, like, I think to me, you know, it's going to sound kind of weird because I think we're in the perfect time frame. We're also kind of the perfect age. I mean, mid to late 30s, you know, I mean, to me at least, you know, we have that kind of like, you know, those trappings that we wouldn't necessarily get caught into. You know what I mean? Like, you know, you get, you know, younger kids and all these bands, and I watch like all the videos of like their bands that they do and stuff like that. And I think it's a common misconception that they have to go out and destroy themselves in those vans playing, you know what I mean, little clubs. When
I don't understand that. Like,
you can play local. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, bro.
No, you're good, man.
But yeah, you can play local, get your name out there, then you just throw it out on social media.
Yeah.
You create videos, you know.
I never understood like the methodology behind like alcoholism or paraphernalia. Like, because my high is my music. Like, I don't really need any of that to understand how powerful music is.
Yeah.
And how cool it is to play with other people, because that's a trip in itself.
I just like to jam.
Same way.
So how did you guys get into music in the first place? What caused you to like pick up a guitar or a pair of drumsticks and say, I have to do that?
This is going to be the dumbest story ever. And for those of you that can't see me, I am a rather large individual and have been for quite some time, so I don't think it'll come as a surprise. Well, let me start off by saying this. When I was a little kid, I would always play my dad's acoustics and stuff, and like play my brother Rance's guitars, and like, so I was always around guitars and stuff, and I always loved music. So like I always had kind of like a thing for it. Like I was always listening to it when I was a kid. I really liked like, you know, like 50s music when I was little, like you know, but when I started getting into like the harder stuff, like listen to the Black Album and, you know, listen to my sister's albums and stuff like that. And then somewhere along the line, I was like 15 or 16, and I'll never forget this. Like every kid in school was writing Adidas all over their notebooks, and it was 96, 97. So I was talking to a friend of mine, and I was like, what's up with this band Adidas that everybody's into? And it's like, it's Korn. And then so what he did is he made me a mixtape, yes, an actual tape cassette, and on one side it had Korn, Life is Peachy, but on the other side he had Room, so he put Cowboys from Hell from 101 Live, Cemetery Gates, and Seek and Destroy, like to kind of fill it out.
Yep.
And I listened to Korn, and I like Korn a lot, but I was like, Pantera is kind of like where it's at. Steinbach is my favorite guitar player ever. But
we're actually sitting in Arlington too. So
yeah, we're in Arlington, not too far away.
Right in the heart of it.
Rest in peace, man. He's not far. But what's funny is I started listening to heavy music, and a big thing back then was getting the musician's friend catalog, and you just look at different guitars and stuff like that. And I was eating a bag of Doritos, and it was Doritos was having some kind of a promotion. I don't know why, but they gave away guitar picks in the bag. And I was like, oh man, maybe that's my sign. I should start playing guitar. So I called up my buddy Joseph, and he had started playing guitar. And I was like, dude, I think I'm going to start playing guitar. And he was like, no, you should play bass. I was like, it's a good idea. I think I'm going to start playing bass. So, you know, went, got a pawn shop Yamaha, actually. And then I just kind of started from there. And I mean, I just like, you know, I taught myself, which is, I guess, not that surprising. But yeah, I just like picked it up and play. I mean, I had, you know, I would learn some stuff. Like I think the first song I learned how to play on bass was Orgy, Blue Monday, because it had just come out and everybody was into it. So that was the first song I learned, and then from there I really couldn't play anything else. So I just wrote original stuff, and then at some point when I was 20, I sold my bass and I got a real guitar, and then it's just been kind of going from there. But yeah, it was definitely that tape.
Anyway, so I got a mixtape of Satriani. That really did it for guitar, because then I was hooked after that.
Yeah,
I played that thing to death. So what about you, Brett? How did you start?
It was a mixture of things, of course. It's like I was 15 years old when I picked up drumsticks. What mainly started it for me was I was in high school, or actually it was probably middle school and then the beginning of high school. I had a buddy, Jacob Castro, who's actually the drummer for Everlit in Philadelphia. What's up, Jacob? I saw him play at a talent show at one of our schools, and I said, I have to do that. like I have to do what he's doing. And I remember going up to his drum kit, just like attempting to play it, and there was like this dickwad in one of my classes, bully. He's like, I know how to make you cry. He's like, you don't know how to play drums. And I actually did tear up because like it really meant a lot. Like it was reverse psychology. So I was in Washington D.C. with a travel camp one year, and I saw these drumsticks at Hard Rock Cafe in D.C. and I said, what, like I just want to have these to, you know, display in my room. And the lady was like, you know, well, you could also use them as back massagers. And I'm like, well,
Okay.
you know, and ever since then, I just said, you know what, I don't want to do that. I actually want to use them for what they're meant for. And so I started playing on books. I started playing on magazines. I started getting like little tiny cheap drums and playing on those. A friend of our family's, Frank, called my Uncle Frank, got me my first drum set. It was just $300, came with everything, sounded like crap. And then I started my first band in 11th and 12th grade in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. What really got me into rock or punk rock in that matter, and then metal, was the Offspring's album Americana in 1998. I opened up the CD case and there was an ashtray with a apple pie. I'm like, oh, American Pie, you know, like the Americana. I listened to that album front to back. To this day, it gives me chills because it's they got back to their roots. I saw them live last year at Edgefest. They're amazing. And then, I started getting into, like, you know, just the old school stuff like Rufio and Misfits, Rancid. And I saw a buddy of mine wearing a shirt that said sick, not like, you know, oh, you're sick, you're going to throw up type thing, but it said SIC. And I was like, what does that mean? He's like, there's this band called Slipknot. You got to listen to them. And I'm like,
Swear jar.
yeah, there's another swear jar.
Just kidding.
And ever since then, I fell in love with those guys, and they're playing some brutal, you could call it new metal, but it's more like industrial metal. And what they did to metal was really cool. They made it more experimental. They able to sample things, have DJs in it, and, you know, just, I saw them live in 09, and that was amazing night. Actually right here in Texas at Verizon Theater in Grand Prairie.
I actually agree with that as far as like Slipknot being like different when they came out. Like the first album, I loved it.
They really changed the
Iowa
face
too.
of, like, they took like what Marilyn Manson and Korn did, and then they did that rap metal type thing with Spit It Out, and then Surfacing was just like, I want to destroy my room type of song. And since I suffered from severe anxiety and depression and still do, those guys really helped me get through life, period. To this day, they help me. Well, of course, you know, my fiance Nicole, my family, my friends, you, Simon. Everybody I have a really great support group, and I guess you could say I'm blessed, as that people say these days. But the point of the matter is that if it wasn't for like that foundationary area of music, I wouldn't have the confidence to ask Nicole out. I wouldn't have had the confidence to pick up drumsticks, and just, instead of being told, hey man, you suck, you can't do this, well, I'm going to take that as leverage and just bounce off.
Absolutely.
And just say, like, look, I can do this. Like, it's going to be hard. It's going to suck. I mean, Dave Grohl said that when he went to Seattle, he had just had a briefcase and his drum set, and they just got into a garage and they just sucked. And they became the greatest band in the world, Nirvana.
I think that, yeah, and I think and sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No,
you,
you're good, man.
But I was going to interject with that. I mean, I think, you know, that those growing pains and getting through them is part of the fun, man. Like, when we would start bands in high school, like, I had a tiny little PV bass amp. You couldn't hear it over drums, you know, but we would just roll and try to do whatever. We never got good, but at the same point, you know, it's that, you know, that fun. I mean, eventually you'll come up with something, you know.
Absolutely. I mean, you guys haven't heard it yet because it's not out, so at the time of this recording, but episode 10 is an interview with my high school friend, and there's a song at the end which is from our 15-year-old selves on a really shit tape deck that we recorded in the music room, so you guys are in for a treat.
Well, and see, and that's the thing too, is like, you know, talking about being the best time to like start a band and make music. I mean, you know, when we were in high school, you know, we didn't have any of that shit.
No.
I mean, we could print out tabs and we could like learn the songs and stuff like that. But
You're a lot younger than I am, because we didn't have that at all.
we couldn't record them, you know.
Yeah,
like
we didn't have technology today. We didn't have like a smartphone where you could just YouTube yourself playing drums or playing guitar, and then you instantly get like, if you get 1,000 hits, like, hey, YouTube's like, we maybe pay you for this if you get a certain amount of likes or whatever.
But that being said, people would actually go to shows back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
I remember we used to go to, there was this one band at our high school called Stickface, and you know, when they'd play, man, they'd get like a good like 150 kids at these VFW halls in Mesquite, man. So people were into it back then.
I think that's indicative of the way, you know, what people are doing in terms of, you know, their distractions these days.
Mm-hmm.
Everything's going online. I mean, actually, that's a good jumping off point for a conversation. The guy, the DJ Marshmallow Head,
Mm-hmm.
had 10 million people on a concert inside of the Fortnite game.
Yeah,
Like, that's where everything's going. So
it's crazy.
It's kind of weird. So
And
yeah, I think that in itself is a challenge in today's musical, you know, landscape, in the fact that people just have so much entertainment and so much stuff that they can watch.
Right.
That, yeah,
It's extremely overwhelming today. I mean, I majored in PR at University of North Texas, which is an excellent music school, and Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook are just like the foundations of social media, where you have like everything bounces off of that. Every kid today has a smartphone, and they're always down on it, like looking at it, and it could be in the middle of traffic, and we all know that. It's just it's starting to get to the point where it's just overwhelmingly dangerous. It's like, oh man, you know, whatever happened, now they're bringing back vinyl records, and to me that's cool, because you could see the album artwork, you can read it easier, you could take out like if you have a kid, it'd be like, daddy, or you know, mommy, what's this? Be like, well, in the 70s and 80s these were huge, or even the 60s too, but like it sounds 10 times better than an M4A or an MP3. And not only that, like a cassette, like we mentioned earlier, and then compact discs, all that stuff should be like issued to young kids.
I miss that hiss.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny too, just thinking about high school and thinking about like, you know how those bands actually got people to their shows. We used to take little made up patches, like they would draw their band logo on the patch, like, or on a piece of paper, and they would laminate it. And they'd cut them out and they'd hand them around at school, and then we'd all staple them to our backpacks to show our support.
Nice.
So they were marketing themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think from there to now, it's just a case of you got to find the way of reaching people. You know, it's all very well saying, you know, the landscape is getting worse because people are attached to their phones. I think that's kind of an excuse, because, you know, huge companies market to everyone.
Oh, yeah.
There's a way to do it. You just have to, like we said before, you have to throw a bunch of stuff at the wall, see what sticks, and move on.
Well, and the thing about it too that I think a lot of musicians may not get, and maybe they do, but you have to write good songs, right? Like I think that's part of what
make
like
it in this
step
industry.
one.
You gotta write good
is,
lyrics.
you know,
I mean,
you
not
have
just
to have a good song.
Not like good lyrics even. It has to have, I guess, consistency is the first word that comes to mind, in a sense that, like, some songs I'll listen to, even by some of my favorite rock bands or metal bands or whatever, I'm like, man, how do they write this? Like, it doesn't make sense, but they're the ones on, like, 97.1 The Eagle getting airtime. And I'm like, okay, they did something right. They all got together, they all collaborated,
Well, I mean,
they all had a think tank. But at the same time, you know, what is it, like, people rag on Lars Ulrich, for example, from Metallica. Like, he's the man in the arena, so... Like, I'm not to be judicious of him if I were to meet him and say, hey, man, you really should, you know, step it up and not... Like, well, he's sitting in front of thousands of people.
Right.
I don't care.
And
Yeah,
whether it was the Napster thing or whatever, he's still Metallica's drummer. And I'm still, you know, just an average
You're still the beast.
Yeah, I'm still the beast.
But, well, I mean, the thing about, like,
Lots of love, though.
I mean, you know, the thing about, like, Metallica and, like, you know, Five Finger Death Punch. I mean, say what you will about them. I mean, they're an arena band.
Yeah,
They are a great band at the end of the day.
Like, you know, so, I mean, you know, if you look at some of that. But the thing that Five Finger Death Punch, like, the thing that Metallica, Five Finger Death Punch, not comparing them at all, by the way, because I think Metallica...
No comparison.
But,
different.
You know, the thing about Metallica compared to, like, Five Finger Death Punch, Avenged Sevenfold, you know, all these big, like, arena kind of metal bands is they have a show.
Yeah.
You know
They
what I
have a
mean?
show, they
They
have
do
a set,
something.
yeah.
They do something on stage different than
They do
just staring
something
at their
different.
feet,
Yeah.
playing the same song over and over, and people just don't. People need something to see.
They
Yeah.
also have their own sound. I've noticed, like,
Right.
my very first concert was in New York City, and I don't know what I was thinking, but it was Sum 41, and my buddy and I went. Of course, we didn't drive at the time, so our folks drove us to New York City. Thanks, Mom. Love you, Dad. Point of the matter is that we saw them, and I had, at the time, I was taking drum lessons. I was about a year in, and my teacher's like, oh, man, you don't want to listen to that crap. They're all going to run it through the PA system, and they all, like, you know, it's going to sound, all you're hearing is from the PA system. It's all EQ'd and preset. And I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, hey, man, go enjoy, just see it for yourself. And I recognized Sum 41 when I first heard them because they had a unique sound. They just sounded like, it's just like Korn too. They don't even consider themselves nu metal. But when I saw them live, I'm like, man, he was right. It's just bombastic noise and everything.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I could hear them. I could hear the enunciation of the vocals and everything. But No Use for a Name opened up for them. And they're like 10 times more experienced and veterans and stuff. Like one of my bucket list is Bad Religion. Love to see them live.
That'd be
Love
awesome.
Love that band.
love to see
Yeah.
them live. The Offspring are actually, I think, signed by them, and then the Offspring signed the Vandals, which is
Vandals
like
be cool.
Vandals are really good. Listen to Total Immortal; it's a really good song. But yeah,
Well,
stuff like that.
I think that goes into kind of what we were talking about earlier too, with like, you know, the perception of what you should be. You know what I mean? If Sum 41 comes out and they're all muddled, it's because they felt like they should be that way. You know what I mean? Like
the
harsh
time,
guitars and
Like where Chester Bennington took his life. I was
Yeah.
talking to a buddy of mine at LSA Burger at Denton, who's the guitarist for the Biographies, and they're kind of like an indie rock band. They're really good, and go see them. Biographies, amazing band, Denton. And we were discussing, like, this was like the day after he took his life, and he's like, you got to remember, like, in the early 2000s, Linkin Park sounded that way because a lot of other bands sounded that way too. You know, even Limp Bizkit, believe it or not, had that type of new metal sound. And then when they started experimenting, people were like, oh man, why are you sounding different? Why are you doing this? And I'm not saying that's why Chester took his life. It's just like there were a lot of people mad at him. There was even an article I read where he called out someone in the audience. He's like, hey, meet me out back if you don't like the way we sound, man. Because they started playing Minutes to Midnight and everybody booed him after the Meteora stuff. And I'm like, well, they're trying something different. I mean, they're not like doing it purposely to piss people off.
And that's like a fine line, I think. Like when you like the product that you deliver, like I think it's okay to be experimental and to do your thing, but if you completely abandon like your identity, I don't know if it's
I think it's case by case basis.
Yeah.
I mean, I always feel it's, you know, anyone's going to criticize some band. Like, let's take Opeth. I really like Opeth. They've got 3 distinct sounds, from the early death metal to the heavy prog to the more 70s prog, and people
Yeah.
really hate on them because of that. And I'm like, it's their music.
In
If
Flames
you're
is-
paying-
Can't be judicious.
Yeah, In
Yeah,
Flames
In
is
Flames
another
is like
example.
that, too.
I mean,
Yeah.
if you basically, unless you're paying them to write you something, listen to it
Well,
or don't listen
Yeah,
to
I
it.
don't
it's your
know.
choice.
I don't
You have a
think-
choice. We all have a choice.
I think the cool thing about In Flames is theirs was like, I think theirs was over time. Like it wasn't all of a sudden like we're death metal and then now we're kind of, I don't know, I guess I'd say more proggy a little bit. Like, you know what I mean? I think it was a transition. But I don't know. I mean, my thing is I just play whatever I want.
Exactly.
If you don't like it,
I think that's the biggest thing or takeaway is, you know, at the end of the day, music is a communication of what you're feeling, and write how you want. Because
Amen to
otherwise,
that. Amen to
here's
that.
the thing: if you write it how you expect other people to like it, then it's gonna actually come out insincere.
yep.
Yeah.
If you write what you want, how you want it to sound, and you communicate the emotions that you're trying to get out, then it's all the more realistic, and people will pick up on insincerity.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh,
Even
yeah.
people got onto Rivers Cuomo, Weezer, when they covered Africa by Toto. And they're like, hey, well, they're selling out. Like, and even people like Corey Taylor, Stone Sour, when they did 2 cover albums, they did Gimme Shelter by Rolling Stones with guest vocalist Lizzie Hale of Hailstorm. And he's like, man, you trolls should just go back to your homes. And I agree with Corey Taylor on that. I mean, if you're going to get onto the guy for covering a bunch of other people's tunes, then don't listen to it. It's as simple as that.
Thing about Corey Taylor, and I think Rob Flynn has a little bit of this too, is I think they spend a little bit too much time trying to influence, you know what I mean, other people into what they think and agree. Like, you know what I mean? Like Corey's book, I haven't listened to it, so I can't quote it, but You're Making Me Hate You. You know what I mean? I have no interest to read it because I don't want his opinion on everything else in the world. Same thing with, like, is it Rob Flynn or is it...
Rob Flynn does a lot of stuff.
Who wears the Kill the Kardashian shirt?
That
might be
the guy
Gary
from
Holt.
Slayer,
It's Gary Holt.
yeah.
So,
Gary Holt.
I mean, that kind of shit, dude. Like, my thing is like, I don't like the Kardashians, but at the same time,
Actually, yes.
like,
Corey actually just
cares?
released a pull
why
quote
would you like?
saying that Imagine Dragons is the second most. or
I heard
top-
that too.
or
I didn't
top,
even.
like-
I didn't even click
like
on the article.
His
Like,
nickname is the Great Big Mouth for a reason. It's all publicity, and he's saying like, oh, they're just like Nickelback. They're like, you know.
I know.
And I saw Imagine Dragons live last year, and I can assure you, they were an amazing band.
love
They put on
Imagine
quite a
Dragons.
show.
They did
and
a-
Dan Reynolds and the guys from Vegas or whatever, man, they're just
They
great
did a
musicians.
cover of Blank Page by Taylor Swift. I love that shit.
What, Imagine Dragons?
Yeah.
I need to hear
Again,
that.
I think it's subjective. Like music
All
is music.
subjective.
Whatever you like, you like.
We even
and
put it
whatever
on.
you
I
don't.
put it on Messenger. I said thoughts, and Adam was like, "You know what? You want to listen about people shaking their butt?
Do
Listen
it,
about
man.
People been
Just-
shaking their
I
butt."
mean-
But
Right.
Simon, I think you put your 2 cents in, of course, saying like,
As
you know,
a-
you don't have
well,
to like.
I mean, I
you don't have to
consider-
listen to it. Period.
I consider myself kind of a lyricist, so I really like lyrics. I mean, that's
Well,
like
look at Frank Zappa. I mean,
you
Frank
know,
Zappa stuff was
yeah, I
like,
mean,
all impromptu.
it's one of my favorite things to kind of listen to is the lyrics and how the melodies go together and where they put words.
Right.
But at the same time, if somebody wants to listen to, you know, ho ho go bang a ho,
Yeah,
go
right.
listen to it.
Then go for it.
Yeah,
man.
I don't
Go for
care.
it.
Like-
we're also live in a nation where we have the freedom to do it, and
Yeah.
a lot of countries too also have democracy. Believe it or not, it's just more so. We're a very opinionated society. When I took a lot of journalism courses, like we're manipulated by the media. Anything someone's going to say on the mainstream media, we're going to eat it up unless we debunk it or do your research.
The problem is not that like we can be manipulated, like, you know what I mean, or opinionated. Like, everybody's entitled to their opinion. The problem is that I can't have an opinion and you have a difference of opinion without me wanting you to jump to my side of the opinion.
Right.
And actually, I think those things are kind of, I don't know, I think if we agreed on everything all the time, I wouldn't like that, because it's part of the fun, is to be like, I love George Strait, and, you guys may not, but
Hey man, I listen to Taylor Swift.
I
I
think-
blast that shit sometimes.
I wouldn't admit to that. No, I'm just kidding. No, I'm just joking. I just contradicted myself.
Can you
No.
add like that effect of the
Yeah,
audience
I'm gonna cut it here and put some crickets. Or something.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
it'll be
like
the
Taylor,
Russ
I like
Martin
Taylor
show on the
Swift. I
Eagle.
think she's a good writer. I think she's too much into her own shtick about writing
Yeah.
about people that she broke up with. But
Well,
it's
that
not my
begins like the
business.
emo-ish type of, like
So
people
any-
think like country music is just farm emo. Nah,
Yeah.
it's a little deeper than
Farm
that.
emo. Well, the thing I like about country, believe it or not, is that it's like, I don't know, to me it just seems like normal stuff. You know what I mean? Like, they really are just singing about normal stuff, like going to get a beer and
They're
you
just dressed
know.
differently. That's a little bit, yeah.
I mean,
some of them. I mean,
yeah.
you mentioned George Strait. That's when country music,
Oh,
in my
he's-
opinion, was
George
like country.
Strait's old school country, but
Well,
you
that's
get
what I
these
mean.
guys now, they wear the V-necks and
Yeah.
you
Well, the
know.
rock and roll country, kind of like what is
Yeah.
it, Rascal Flats?
Oh yeah.
They're a little too generic for me, but like once we talked about before, who am I to go up to a bunch of people who are fans of them and be like, hey, you should really
Yeah.
listen to Patsy Cline instead of...
Your music's wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah,
listen to,
you
fucking
can.
listen to- listen
I'm
to
not of
Rascal
liberty
Flatts.
to do that.
Right,
Not
exactly.
of liberty to do that, period. We can have an opinion, but like you just initiated. It's like, oh, I can have an opinion, but it has to be different. Like we just have to resonate.
I can't promise
I
I
was
won't
like,
make
no.
fun of you for you.
Right. No, that's the thing.
But that's more...
But I'm not going to try and change your opinion.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It doesn't really mean I care. I just like to make fun of people for
Right.
things.
Bull busting.
It's part of my nature.
So, okay. So next topic, I think, is what do you guys feel like are some of the most important things to try in marketing a band or playing in a band?
I think getting Facebook out there and getting that going, and then I think to start, those Facebook ads that we did, you know what I mean? Like, I think actually paying for the advertisement helps, you know what I mean? It's like, the thing about that is like, people do commercials all the time on TV to try to get their product noticed.
Right.
So you have to invest a little bit of time into that.
You got to spend money to make money.
Because the thing about it too that I've noticed is, there's a lot of saturation. So if I post something and I'm like, hey, go like my band, all my friends will like it, all your friends will like it, all Brett's friends will like it, but their friends aren't necessarily going to click on it just because of who I am. So I think trying to find, real people that would be interested in it, and I think like, just boosting the Facebook page, with the Reanimator picture and stuff like that, draws people's attention, and we got a lot of likes from it. So I think that's, kind of number one. And then I think, like, I'm starting to feel like the kind of the merch aspect of it too, I think is going to be, a
you see
big
people
one.
wearing our gear.
Well, because that's the thing. You go to, these shows, and you don't sell tickets, but if you sell merch, you actually pocket all that money. You don't have to split it with anybody. So I think just seeing how that'll work out, seeing if people actually will like buy t-shirts and stuff like that will be beneficial.
And I think for that, along with, you've got to have really good music to begin with. Everything else kind of relies on the product.
Yeah,
I think
that
with
too.
merch, the designs have to be really good. You can't just put out a crappy t-shirt and expect people to buy it
Right.
just because they like your band. It's got to be something that they want to wear because it's a cool design. And you, in doing so, you may actually find that you'll sell more than just the people that like your band. They might just they might hate your band, but they might like the t-shirt.
Buy the gear.
So
yeah.
they'll just buy it regardless.
Well, and then that's the thing, if we come up with something cool and an image that people like and gravitate around, and then they don't like the music, I'm still just as proud of
Yeah.
being a
Well,
t-shirt
we
designer, I
put out
guess.
that
My friend
design.
David wore the shirt he bought from us to a bar in Flower Mound, and the bartender liked it.
Cool.
So, had no idea what it was. Just the raccoon was enough to get it noticed. So I think that too, branding.
Yeah, it's like our mascot
You know.
type thing.
Then I left off music and being tight because I figured that was like, I kind of feel like that's kind of like an unspoken, like the music has to be good,
Oh yeah.
danceable. But the thing about that too, though, is like even then, the cool thing about getting out and playing shows and stuff is if people aren't responding to certain parts of the song, we could always change it.
And that's the key point right there. Pay attention to what
You
the
know what I
audience is
mean?
doing.
Like, I kind of think of it as like, these stand-up comedians that go out to these clubs, the small ones, and they just try stuff out. There's no reason, like, as musicians, we can't do that same thing. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, say, hey,
It's all an art form.
Yeah. It's like, death in an elevator. Okay, when we start, Brett's going to count to 4, everybody jump. If everybody jumps, we do it every time. If nobody jumps, then maybe we don't try that again.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or maybe we try again when we get a bigger, younger crowd, because
Right.
I'm not jumping on stage.
I can't jump because I'm playing drums.
I'll hit like a board in the stage, and it'll like fling you up into the rafters.
Trey Cool did that at Green Day one
That'd
time.
be
He jumped
awesome.
and then landed on his bass pedal.
Yeah.
And one time he did it was at a studio. They were recording, I think it was 21st Century Breakdown. And it was in downtown Manhattan, and he broke his foot, and he had to play like the rest of the album. I want to say, I don't know if this is accurate, in a cast, in
Yeah.
a brace, and he's like a true pop punk drummer, Trey Cool, and like ever since I heard that, I'm like, I want to try that, not break my foot, but I'd like to try and like do some tricks. But my philosophy as a drummer, that is, anybody else can have their once again own opinion, is fine. The professionalism is how you play. You could do all the tricks in the world, but it's just like, can you keep the tempo? Can you keep? Can you lock the backbeat in? I'm not focused on spinning the sticks right away. I can learn that on the side, but a lot of drummers do it, and sometimes I've heard them at local, dive bars here in the DFW area, and they're not that great, but they could do these amazing tricks. And then I've seen drummers who are like, wow, like Neil Peart, like he does a lot of tricks. He can, but he's like the greatest of all time.
I think that's a good point too. Not doing too much. I think like as a good, as a guitar player, I'd rather do some tight rhythms than be able to shred all over the place, because I can't.
Right. I mean,
and I have like, I don't know, I don't really have that much of an interest to learn.
Yeah,
to be
that's
honest.
also a subjective part of music, though. It's
Yeah.
all extra parts that, you know, if you want to do it. That's great. But I like the fact that you bring up jumping as a drummer. I just want to give a shout out to episode 2, Tester. I'll show you a video of the drummer of that band. He's crazy.
Sounds good.
And
yeah.
another thing I was gonna say too, you know, just thinking in terms of like the music and, you know, what we need to do to like, you know, be successful, or like one of the things is just that confidence too.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I mean, you know, one of my favorite things to watch is live musicians messing up on stage. I think it's hilarious.
Mm-hmm.
And it's gonna happen to me multiple times, and I just love that. And it's like the, you know, the fact that, you know, we kind of own the stage when we're up there. You know, I think a lot of people get up there and, you know, they let the sound guy kind of do their thing, and then they just leave the shit. I'm guilty of that too. My first show that I ever played live, I was playing bass. I couldn't hear anything, you know, and I never said anything because, you know, I figured, hey, we're off and rolling. You know what I mean? And now I don't have that mindset. If I can't hear anything, he's going to be turning it up, you know? So I think that's a kind of a big part of it, too. It's just, you know, I think that separates bigger bands from local bands, is owning the stage. Like, in such a way, like, charisma and stuff like that is one thing, but that's not really what I'm talking about. I'm talking about, like, your ability to be able to play without that panic factor.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, one of my favorite stories from you, maybe I should let you tell it because it's your story, when you dropped your tuner.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So my previous band, so it was our first gig opening for a national touring act, and I had a clip-on tuner on my guitar headstock, and we had one song in the middle of the set that I tuned differently. I went to turn it on and I flicked it into the staging, and I panicked. Yeah, I absolutely panicked. I could have just turned my my tuner on my guitar rig on, but I was so caught up in the moment of like, what the hell did I just do? I ended up taking my guitar off. Luckily I saw it. I had to lay down on the stage, reach all the way down to the staging and pick it up and then go. But it was just stuff like that is you just have to get out of the mindset. You just have to overcome your stage fright a little bit.
Oh man, well,
Just
that's the
for that.
thing. Like, the thing about it too is, I mean, it's, you know, I don't know, like I said, I like that. I like the mistake. So if that happens to us, we'll just stop. I'll be like, Simon's got to get his tuner. He dropped it. You know, we're gonna, you know, I'll tell you guys a story or a joke or
Right.
something. You know, but it's a lot of pressure from like the other guys you're in a band with sometimes too. You know, because, you know, I mean, bands have egos. Luckily, I don't think any of us have any kind of an ego. I'm probably the biggest dick in this band, which is like, which is odd because I feel like I'm the nicest guy in the world, but at the same time, I think compared to you two, I'm kind of a piece of shit. And that's not me self-loathing; it's just true. You know, but I mean, you know, it's one of those things. You know, nobody has egos. We're all cool. You drop sticks or decide to tune during a song. You know, that's what we do.
Yeah.
Understand.
I think a lot of that, the benefit of that is from, like you mentioned before, we're all kind of mid to late 30s. Some of us are older than others
Yes.
and feeling it. But, you know, we have that life experience that means that we just don't care about the little shit. I know that's a good life skill, is just don't give a shit about the little stuff.
Yeah, man. Like the ability to move on and like just get through things with a positive attitude too, I think is like, you know, a huge plus. Like, not every show we do is going to be good.
No.
You know, we may play better March 17th because it's our first show. It's kind of a bigger one, you know, and then we might slack on a little bit at Killer's Tacos. I would, you know, I mean, it's always my goal to play 100%, but I mean, that's just how it is, you know, like your situation determines like what goes on. We'll also be on a smaller stage, you know, probably won't have sound, so,
That's fine.
you know,
Cool. Well, any closing comments for this episode? Or
no,
Just keep on rocking, man.
yeah, don't listen to Corey Taylor.
I mean, you could listen to him, but like,
Well, listen to his music, not
Listen to
Stone
his-
Sour,
like,
because
Hey,
they
man.
kick. They kicked Jim Root out.
Hey, actually, Christian Martucci is a pretty damn good guitarist. But yeah, when Jim
the
Root
bald
was
one.
No, he's got the slick black hair.
Yeah, I don't like him.
The bald one's Josh Rand.
I don't like him either because they kicked Jim Root out.
Well, Jim
I
Root,
love
when
Jim Root.
you got to remember, they actually sounded a little different with Jim Root in a good way.
I know, because he was bad at it.
Actually, their latest album's really good. Hydrograd is a great album.
Oh, it's Stone Sour. No, I'm just kidding. Listen to whatever you want. Sorry, I keep contradicting myself.
Also, before we put another $1 in the swear jar, Slipknot is dropping a new album later
They
this
are.
year. Yeah.
It's going to be awesome. Jim Root's going to be on it.
Yeah, well, he's in the band. I hope so.
All right. Well, cool. Thank you, guys. And we'll
Yeah, man.
Yeah, man.
catch up on the next episode.
Thanks. Hopefully it didn't suck. Fuck.
I hope this episode was entertaining, if not mildly informative. Check out the show notes at musiconyourownterms.com. And if you want to keep up with the band, you can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/Creatures and Chemicals. To round out the episode, I'm going to play a track from version 1 of Creatures and Chemicals and the EP they released prior to my joining. This track is called They Live. Hope to see you soon. Be excellent to each other. Keep pushing the needle.
A drifter strolls into another broken town, USA. The church is prepared for another corporate cover-up. A box full of sunglasses, all full, more than shade. Glasses on to see past another alien invasion attack. Obey, obey, consume, consume, sleep, sleep. They live, obey, obey, consume, consume, sleep, sleep. They live, obey, consume, sleep. Humans change into another alien life form. CEOs and stockbrokers control more than money. Earth is in danger, but one stranger can save us from another ugly ass alien invasion. Obey, obey, consume, consume, sleep, sleep. They live, obey, obey, consume, consume, sleep, sleep. They live, I said obey, obey, consume, consume, sleep, sleep. They live, I said obey, obey, consume, consume, sleep, sleep. They live, obey.